Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Amber Heard, what is she? Part 8. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, and we can continue delving into the world of Amber Heard, using both material that has existed prior to the trial and evidence that has come out during the course of the trial. It's starting to point in a particular direction, and of course, there has been recent testimony from a psychologist that provided some interesting observations with regard to a particular diagnosis of Amber Heard, but I will be addressing that in due course. For now, we consider the evidence and continue to do so. As I've explained, there is a mountain of material to wade through about this particular lady, and therefore I have extracted the most pertinent points for the purposes of analysis. Let's get back to it. Johnny Depp testified that either Heard or one of her friends defecated in their bed after he broke up with her. This, of course, has led to the label of Amber Turd and #MePoo, which are suitably entertaining. Depp testified that Heard was responsible for fecal matter found on their shared bed after a fight in which he was leaving her. Argumentative demonstrated, the argument would be a threat to her sense of control. The suggestion that he said he was leaving her is also a major threat to the control of the narcissist. The fact that a person is contemplating or indeed is in the process of leaving a narcissist strikes at the very heart of the need for control. Where that individual is walking away, that wounds us substantially, especially if it's the intimate partner primary source. Indeed, there can be no bigger wounding to a narcissist than the intimate partner primary source departing as a consequence of ending the relationship. This makes the narcissist very weak indeed, feel vulnerable, insignificant, unimportant, and the narcissism has to fight in order to address that sense of weakness, that impact upon the loss of control. Where a victim states to the narcissist that they are leaving, this is challenge fuel, because their response is providing fuel with the words that are being said, the body language, the look in the eye, the facial expression, etc., the tone that's used. But the fact that the individual is saying that they're leaving the narcissist again threatens that sense of control. It's not as bad as the wounding because fuel is being received, but it's still pretty critical for the narcissist. Accordingly, if the evidence is correct that there was an argument, a fight, where Depp said that he was leaving her, that would have been challenge fuel, and she would need to get control over him. The evidence stated that the actor said the incident happened following a fight after a dinner party held for Heard's 30th birthday on April 21st, 2016. My initial response to that was I laughed, Depp said, describing the reaction to seeing a photo of the feces. It was so outside, it was so bizarre and so grotesque that I could only laugh. According to Depp, Heard blamed the fecal incident on Pistol and Boo, potentially blame-shifting her two dogs, an explanation that Depp said he found ridiculous. She brought up the fecal matter on the bed. She tried to blame it on the dogs, Depp said. They're teacup Yorkies. They weigh about 4 pounds each. I live with those dogs. I picked up their funk. It was not the dogs. Johnny Depp, in his trial testimony Wednesday, blamed them for the fecal matter. And it's clear that his evidence suggests that it wasn't the dogs, and therefore that appeared to be blame-shifting. Heard denied those allegations. Depp explained that he was more than an hour late to the dinner party because of a meeting with his financial advisors. His accountants and business managers said an inordinate amount of money was gone from his accounts, and Depp was in worse financial shape than he believed. After 30 years of working in industry, Depp explained that he was pretty shocked to learn exactly where he was financially. Depp testified that he texted Heard telling her he was running late to the celebration. In response, Heard told him to pick up wine and weed before arriving, he said. After the dinner, Depp explained, Heard flew into a verbal barrage because Depp was late. Failure to arrive on time threatens the sense of control of the narcissist because it signals that that narcissist isn't important enough to arrive on time. Notwithstanding the explanations behind why the person can't make it, even the fact that he's told her that he's running late still causes a problem with regard to the issue of control for a narcissist. Depp explained it was also because of other perceived slights. And it's interesting that he utilises the word perceived because, as you know from my work with the narcissist, we have an alternative perception of the world to other people, whereby the world is seen through that lens of control, and it is that perception which is at the root of the narcissist's responses. Depp testified when she hit him, he grabbed her shoulders, sat her down on the bed, and told her he was leaving. I said, "I was leaving, please don't follow me." He testified that Heard punched him in the face repeatedly as he tried to leave. Ignition of fury, heated fury response, physical violence. But he ultimately left her in the apartment as he fled to his house in Hollywood Hills. His departure would wound her, and she has not managed, assuming she's a narcissist, to assert control over him. Therefore, her narcissism, if that is the case, would compel her to assert control over him. She can't do it directly, he's departed, and therefore she would need to do it indirectly, perhaps complaining about him to somebody else, but it would appear that there was nobody else around for her to do that. And therefore, it would appear that there was an assertion of control by moving to the third assertion of control, the position of last resort, which is staying in a position of withdrawal. Now, often the narcissist might do this as simply as, well, he can go fuck himself if he wants to run away, little cowardly bastard. And the narcissist thinking that about the victim gives that unconscious sense of control. Or the narcissist might think, once again, he's been hateful to me, I can't understand why he's so horrible to me, but he's just an awful human being. That dismissiveness, that smearing in the mind of the narcissist allows that unconscious sense of control. In some instances, however, in order to assert control by remaining in a position of withdrawal, the narcissist might go further, damaging property, for instance. How many times do you read about the trope of the spurned wife who then takes a scissor to her husband's clothing? That might be the reaction, of course, of someone with diminished emotional empathy because they learn that their husband's having an affair, but it also could be the response of a narcissist asserting control by remaining in a position of withdrawal and lashing out by the destruction of property, because thought fuel is obtained as to the response of that person if they were to see, or when they later see, the results of the handiwork, and also, of course, it creates an innate unconscious sense of control by behaving in this manner. Depp's testimony continued that he said he told his bodyguard Sean Bett to drive him there, but told him it was a bad idea. Bett showed Depp a photograph sent by his housekeeper. It was a photograph of the bed, our bed, Depp testified, and on my side of the bed was human fecal matter. Depp didn't see Heard again until May 21st, he testified. It was the day after his mother, Betty Sue Depp, had died. Depp said the death helped him reassess his life and decided he wanted to formally file for divorce and end the 15-month marriage. According to Depp, Heard blamed the fecal incident on the dogs. And, of course, as I've explained, that didn't weigh up as per the evidence of Depp. The source of the bed poop also came up in Depp's 2020 defamation trial in the United Kingdom against the British tabloid The Sun, which described Depp as a wife-beater. Heard alleged that Depp showed up late to the party, beat her, and then left. Depp said that never happened, and he believed Heard or one of her friends defecated in their bed. Depp ultimately lost the UK case. The judge there ruled that it was unlikely Heard or one of her friends pooped on the bed because it was Miss Heard who was likely to suffer from the feces on the bed, not him, even though they had several apartments on the same floor, and there was evidence one of the dogs, Boo, had an incomplete mastery of her bowels after she had accidentally consumed some marijuana. You simply can't make this up, can you? Of course, in that was a finding of fact in a different trial, which doesn't bind a finding of fact in this one. And Mr. Justice Nicol, of course, believed that Amber Heard had donated the $7 million, which appears to have swayed his view as to her credibility. We have since learned, of course, that didn't actually happen, and therefore an alternative evaluation of the facts would be that it was Heard that attacked Depp, and therefore, given that he then walked away from her, leaving her unsatisfied, it would logically follow that she'd be more likely to put fecal matter into his side of bed, whether it was the dog's or, as is alleged, her own. Assuming that the evidence is correct about it being her fecal matter, what does that demonstrate? Well, it shows a complete lack of boundary recognition. It shows, of course, very unpleasant behaviours to take a dump in the bed. It shows, of course, a sense of entitlement to behave in that way. We don't know if she took a dump elsewhere and then popped it into the bed, or whether she hitched up her skirt and squatted and did her business on the bed. Quite simply, we don't need to know, but I'm sure that's conjured up a few interesting images in your mind. What it does tell us, though, by way of further evidence, is that this is correct, that she operates with a sense of entitlement, a complete absence of boundary recognition, an absence of emotional empathy, and dropping a turd into the bed would be commensurate with the response of a narcissist to somebody threatening their control by A, arguing with them, B, threatening to leave, and then C, withdrawing from the scene. All three things would threaten that narcissist's control. She, of course, sought to assert control by arguing with him, but that didn't work, and that direct assertion of control failed. He said that he wanted to leave her. She argued against that. That failed, and he ultimately physically withdrew from her. She could no longer attempt to assert control over him directly. There was no option to indirectly assert control over him, and therefore, should she be a narcissist, then an explanation would be that in order to assert control over him, unconsciously, of course, she shat the bed for the purposes of that assertion of control by remaining in a position of withdrawal, by undertaking an unpleasant and demeaning act directed at Depp's side of the bed to essentially send a signal to him. It's all a bit shitty, but it adds up to further evidence demonstrating precisely what Amber Heard is. In the next part, we'll be turning to more evidence that's come forth from the trial, particularly that which comes from the bodyguard and his observations, and then testimony from Depp about his daughter's reaction to his wedding with Amber Heard. There's plenty more to come, which certainly paints a picture of what Amber Heard is. Join me there.